White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Stephen, good to have you with us as well. You know, we heard President Trump say not too long ago that these operations were not going to be directed at farms and hotels and longtime workers who had built relationships with the owners of these different businesses. This is a marijuana, it's the largest marijuana operation in California. Does that directive apply to this place?
Well, first of all, the president has been clear and consistent in saying that he's going to fight labor trafficking and child trafficking. And this marijuana plantation is a clear-cut example of labor trafficking and child trafficking, which are heinous crimes. Additionally, I don't know of anybody except the governor of California who would argue that a marijuana plantation is an essential component of America's food supply chain. Everywhere you look in California, you see industrial child exploitation on a massive scale, an industrial scale. There are likely hundreds of thousands of children in California who are being exploited for their labor or sexually exploited as part of sex trafficking. This administration is liberating these children and helping reunify them with their parents back in their home country. What the Biden administration did with respect to child trafficking is one of the great crimes in human history. Over 500,000 children were illegally trafficked into the country under the previous administration. When we've gone and looked for these children, Martha, the addresses that the U.S. government provided, in other words, the records that the government kept under Joe Biden, are all fake. Nobody ever checked if the addresses were real. Nobody ever checked if the sponsors were real. Nobody ever checked if they were really even relatives or parents or relations or safe. We recently recovered a young illegal alien, for example, who had been raped repeatedly by the adult male that the Biden administration handed to her. She was under constant video surveillance and was coached exactly what to say if an officer ever knocked on her door so that she would never be rescued. We have example after example. We go to homes, 13, 14, 15-year-old children who are raped on a daily basis because the Biden administration, because the Democrat Party chose to traffic them into this country. So we will be unrelenting in our effort to free these kids.
Yeah, this is a huge story, and the Biden administration tried to push them out of these holding facilities at the border and into the arms of people who were picking them up. There were some cases where one person picked up 150 children. So I doubt very much that was their uncle.
Not all their children.
Let me just bring this to your attention, Stephen. This is Gavin Newsom's post from last night. I want to show you what Gavin Newsom said, and then we want to do the Karen Bass statement as well. So he posted this last night. Kids running from tear gas, crying on the phone because their mother was just taken from the fields. Trump calls me new scum, but he's the real scum. And then he goes on to say, of course, I condemn any assault on law enforcement. U.S. poster, now do Jan 6. This is coming from Governor Newsom. And Jimmy Gomez, a Democrat in California, midnight last night, posted how many MS-13 gang members are waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to pick strawberries. Oh yeah, 0. Your reaction to those?
That's not necessarily true.
California and Los Angeles are waging insurrection against the federal government. They are protecting those who traffic in the suffering of children. And by the way, do you know why so many of these unaccompanied alien minors are being put to work in slave wages and slave conditions all across California? To pay off their cartel debts. The Democrat Party is funneling these profits from rape, profits from exploitation, and yes, profits from murder, into the hands of the cartels that control the north of Mexico, that assassinate politicians, that assassinate judges, that assassinate women and children, and that smuggle fentanyl into our country. Cartels are waging war against America, and their allies are the Democrat Party. And their allies are the Democrat politicians that are incentivizing these migrant mobs to try to murder our ICE officers in cold blood. I never thought we would ever see the day when Democrat politicians would use language and use rhetoric that would encourage illegal aliens and radical left nonprofits to try to murder ICE officers. But that's where we are right now. And what we are seeing done to this country is the mass theft of wages from the middle class to the migrant mobs. And that has to stop.
It'll be interesting to see if the cartels are involved in any of this protest action. We don't know that yet. But I want to play this from Karen Bass, the Los Angeles mayor,
Oh, what a bitch.
who is discussing offering cash assistance from the state to migrants who are impacted by these raids. Here's what she just said a short time ago.
Shit. Can't make this up.
We also are going to have a reinstitution of the Angelino card, something that Mayor Garcetti started during COVID, that will actually provide cash assistance to people.
Oh, good.
Because, you know, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash.
Stephen, your reaction to that
Unfucking
suggestion?
believable.
It is a crime to furnish money to criminal aliens to facilitate their evasion of federal law enforcement officers. You have illegal aliens, for example, who've been order removed by an immigration judge, who've received, frankly, an obscene amount of process over a period of years, more than any American citizen ever gets, that are defying that removal order, that are hiding out from ICE, and then you have the mayor of Los Angeles paying them to evade law enforcement. That's a crime. And again, another example of how the city government of Los Angeles is waging a campaign of insurrection against the federal government. Let's be very clear. What would Los Angeles look like without illegal aliens? Here's what it would look like. You would be able to see a doctor in the emergency room right away, no wait time, no problem. Your kids would go to a public school that had more money than they know what to do with. Classrooms would be half the size. Students who had special needs would get all the attention that they needed. There would be no violent transnational gangs. There would be no cartels. There would be no Mexican mafia. There would be no Sureños. There would be no MS-13. There would be no TDA. You would be living in a city that would be safe, that would be clean. There would be no fentanyl. There would be no drug dens. That could be the future Los Angeles could have, but the leaders in Los Angeles have formed an alliance with the cartels and the criminal aliens.
All right, Stephen Miller out from the White House. Thank you very much. Once again, we just want to make this point that these kinds of operations were not met with violence in prior administrations. So you have a very different dynamic that is going on here, and a lot of dangerous situations that are resulting because of it. Stephen, thank you very much. Good to see you.